The event that has brought us here today, I believe, amounts to a turning point for our code and more broadly for Australian sport. A new reality exists for athletes across Australia following today's outcome. The decision to take an illicit drug, which up until now would have held no consequence in some sports, and in the AFL seen an anonymous strike recorded, could now result in a major sanction or the end of your career. The game changes for athletes as of today.
Strong words from Chief Executive Gary Pert about Lockie Keeffe and Josh Thomas, and earlier today they admitted guilt and will not contest ASADA findings and will be banned for 2 years. Maxie, really disappointing. 2 young quality people.
Yeah, absolutely disappointing, but this is the world we live in now, and I think we probably knew this was coming for a while now. I think though it talks to the quality of character of these 2 kids, that the fact that the club, while they will delist them, they're willing to offer their hand to sort of say, righto, we know that you've made a big mistake, but we're going to bring you back. So I think the old side-by-side, one of the Collingwood values rings true here. But for the boys, look, they made a big blue. It's one that it's going to be very public and one they've paid for. But they've got another opportunity to try and relive their AFL life.
Now, March 2017 seems a long, long way away at the moment. They can come back and start training in January 17. How hard is it going to be after 2 years out of the game to come back?
Yeah, that's a big question. I think when you look at players who've had like a knee reconstruction or something like that, they're 12 months out of the game, and then it's 6 to 12 months before they really can have an impact after that coming back. So, but they're at the football club every single day. So whether or not these boys, I think mentally is going to be the big one, just to do all that training on your own, because they can't be back at the club until January 2017. So even if they are picked up by Collingwood or by another club in the rookie draft at the end of this season in November, they still can't be at any club training until January 2017. So that's a long, long time where they're going to train either together or on their own with personal trainers or whatever they're going to do. So they've also got to keep up with what's happening in the game. They've got to make sure they're watching plenty of football. So there's a lot of things that they've got to put in place for them. It's not just walk back in and think that you can play AFL footy after 2 years. They've got to do a lot of work to make sure when they come back they are capable.
And we should say that they didn't intend to take a performance-enhancing drug. Glenn Buterol was in some illicit substances that they have admitted taking. What does this mean now for the illicit drug policy?
Oh, I think it's certainly time to be reviewed. And I know it is being reviewed, so it sounds an obvious statement, but I think 8 or 10 years ago when it was actually brought in, I think that it was the right thing. But over the last 4 or 5 years, we've seen, I guess, the challenges society faces with illicit drugs. There's been big issues, and I think from this point, if a player decides to take illicit drugs and something like this happens, there'll be no sympathy at all from the public or from the football clubs, because everyone now knows exactly where they stand. Clearly, it takes a while for the clubs to find out what's actually going on. So
does that need to change?
I think it does. Yeah, in this situation right here, then the club wouldn't have found out if it was just illicit drugs and they got a strike. So they actually wouldn't have even been found guilty of a strike because of when it was taken after when they'd taken the drugs. So there's a lot that has to change. It has to be reviewed. It will be reviewed. Gary Pert was strong on that in terms of the club's own findings in the review of all of this. So yeah, it definitely has to change.
And I think the other aspect too is that the sample size, the number of tests conducted are so low that it's not necessarily going to catch people, those players that are taking illicit drugs. So that needs to increase dramatically as well.
Yeah, correct. And I know that a lot of people say, well, look, you look at Ben Cousins, for example, he went through his whole career and he didn't test positive to taking performance-enhancing drugs or illicit drugs or anything like that. So I think it's certainly got to change. I'm not sure what the answer is right now, but I know the AFL are doing a lot of work in the background to make sure that they do get all this cleaned up.
Well, that's the news. Lockie Keeffe and Josh Thomas will be out of the game until March 2017.